In this video, I want to go over 3 tips to help you graph sine and cosine. When I was teaching, this was probably one of my least favorite lessons because we'd get out this graph paper and we'd graph these functions and it'd be so tedious and students would not understand what to do and it was more difficult. So throughout the years, I kind of refined my teaching methods to really kind of focus in on these main tips. So therefore, when a test came or an exam, students had a good understanding of understanding the graphs of sine and cosine, as well as how to apply these tips so therefore they could get the question correct. So let's go and focus in on these tips if you have to graph or if you just have a test or exam coming up. Now, the first tip that is just crucially important to make sure that students know is you need to know the parent graphs of sine and cosine, all right? And you also need to know the characteristics of what makes them similar as well as what makes them different. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sketch the initial period of the sine graph as well as the cosine graph. So therefore you can understand them, write them down. If you don't remember them, make sure that if anything, you know these graphs, okay? So the reason why we call this the initial period, I don't know why I'm graphing sine incorrectly. The reason why we call this the initial period is because these would be the points that would correspond to the angles on the unit circle. But remember, with the unit circle, we can keep on applying rotations in the positive direction as well as in the negative direction. So this graph is going to continue using this pattern in the positive as well as negative direction on this X and Y axis. But I'm just going to focus on the initial period. So therefore, we can understand some characteristics about these graphs. Now, I don't have my X scale or my Y scale perfectly aligned between these two, but hopefully you can follow along with me, okay? So it's really important that these graphs are going to continue indefinitely following this pattern into right and to left. So what that means is my domain for both of them is going to be all real numbers. So it's from negative infinity to positive infinity. The range is going to be defined between -1 and +1. That's the exact same for sine and cosine. You can see we have this, we have lower points and higher points, right? So we have this maximum point, this lower point, we have the maximum as well as the lower point. The other thing, that's what we a lot of times refer to as what we call the amplitude. How high does the graph go to how low does the graph go? So the initial parent graph is going to have an amplitude of simply just 1. Now, we also have a period. How long does it take the graph to repeat itself? For sine and cosine, that's both going to be a 2 pi. And amplitude and period, that is going to be next, but we'll get into these other important characteristics here for in the other tips. Now, if we have a graph that has some transformations, we do want to be able to understand, well, how can we apply those transformations? So if I had a graph that looked like this, let's just do the sine function. Oops. Let's do it with the transformations, because for any function, you should know these, you should be familiar with these transformations, b times x minus c plus d, okay? Where a is being multiplied by your function. Now, again, it doesn't matter if it's sine or if it's cosine. The amplitude is going to be the absolute value of a, and your period is going to be 2 pi divided by your b. Now, a, b, c, and d are all going to be able to apply some transformations, and I'll get to that in just a second. But it's really important to make sure you can identify what your amplitude is, what your period is going to be based on understanding these graphs. And the last thing I also want to talk about is going to be the X scale. Where do these points, kind of come from? Well, when we're looking into the parent graphs, all of these are going to have an interval of what we call pi halves. And if you think of the unit circle, that's basically like a different quadrant, right? First pi halves or 90 degrees would be at the y-axis, and then you go to pi and so forth. So at this point, we're going to have a pi halves. This point would be a pi. This point is going to be 3 pi halves. And this point is going to be 2 pi. That's how long it takes the graph to repeat itself. And that's the exact same thing over here. So that would be a pi halves. This point is going to be at pi. That is at 3 pi halves. And then the final completes the circle here at going to be 2 pi. Okay? So make sure you understand the characteristics. Make sure you know the differences between sine and cosine, how these graphs look, right? Where their x-intercepts are. They're going to be different between the two graphs, but also know their similarities, the domain, the range, the amplitude, the period. It's going to be the same for the function. It doesn't matter what these transformations are for, if it's sine or for cosine, it's going to impact those graphs exactly the same. Now let's actually go into like some graphing. Like, what are actually some tips for when you need to be able to graph some things? So let's go over a function and let's kind of just understand what are some things we can do, because when we're trying to graph the trigonometric functions, it can be difficult. And I'm going to do an example where 2x minus pi. And I'm going to kind of go through some of the basics of what exactly I want my students to be able to do, especially when we have some transformations, okay? Now, in this first tip, I'm just going to focus on the horizontal transformations. Before we even get to graphing, I always tell my students, make sure you identify the parts. Make sure you understand what is the domain, what is going to be the amplitude. That's going to be critically important. So our amplitude, remember, is absolute value of A. And you can see here we have a coefficient of 1, so our amplitude is still going to be 1. Our period, though, is going to be different. Period is going to be 2 pi divided by b. So all I'm simply going to do is understand my b, which is the coefficient of my x. Now, you might see that, Ms. McLogan, this isn't in that format, and you are correct. A lot of times what I always like to do is rewrite this in this correct format, so therefore we can properly understand what are the transformations. So what I would need to do is, actually, I'm not going to write equals, that's incorrect. But what I would do is factor out this b, this 2, so therefore it can be rewritten as sine of 2 times x minus a pi halves. That's critically important because if you have an understanding of transformations, which I hope you do, you recognize that then minus pi halves is going to be shifting pi halves to the right. But there is a tip that I want to show you that we'll get into in this tip that you can use where you can still kind of make a mistake and not do this, and you can still get the correct answer, okay? But anyways, our period is 2 pi divided by b, so I simply just take my 2 pi, divide it by my b, which is the coefficient here, and I'm just going to get a pi, all right? Now, the next thing is identifying your x scale. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, your x scale. So your x scale, what I want you to understand is this period is broken up into 4 different parts, okay? Right? We have the maximum, the intercept, the minimum, the intercept, okay? Or sorry, there we go. So maximum, intercept, thing. So you can see it's broken up into 4 points. So when I'm graphing a trigonometric function, or at least I want to understand that all those important characteristics, the maximum, the minimum, the intercepts, are going to occur at intervals of 4 or 4 equal parts within the domain. So if I want to understand where those are going to be, I need to figure out what we call the x scale. So to identify the x scale, all you're simply going to do is take your period and divide it by 4. So in this case, my period is pi. And so what I'm going to do is just pi divided by 4. So the next thing, though, we need to understand is where is going to be my starting point? Where are these horizontal shifts going to be? Because if you're going to take this graph and try to shift it over pi halves, it can get rather confusing. So I always think it's important when we're graphing like a trigonometric function to say, all right, I want to start somewhere, and then I would just want to go use my x scale to continue graphing it. And again, I'm going to go through this example as I'm going through these tips. So to understand the starting point, all you're simply going to do is take whatever is inside the argument of your trigonometric function and set that equal to 0. So I'm just going to call this the starting point. And to find the starting point, all you simply do, again, is take the argument of your logarithm, so 2x minus pi, and set that equal to 0. That is going to tell you where you're going to start kind of graphing this initial period. So I'll add a pi to the other side, divide by 2, and x equals a pi halves, which makes complete sense, right? We know from the transformations or understanding transformations, this graph is being shifted pi halves to the right. I know that the initial period of my sine graph starts at 0, right? So if I'm shifting it pi halves to the right, I can see my new starting point is going to be at pi halves. And that's exactly what that tells us as well. This is just important a lot of times. Again, so that's what I was talking about, the tip. You can avoid sometimes factoring that out and understanding your transformations. You can just go right into understanding the starting point in this case. And especially if you have something that's a little bit more, difficult, some difficult numbers, using the starting point can be pretty helpful. So encompassing with this whole tip is, again, I'm going to create let's say here's my XY axis, the exact same thing that we had for our parent graph. So, let's just kind of graph the parent graph here. So we're going to 1, we have to -1, and we have all these points here. So this is just going to be my parent graph, okay? But now what I'm simply going to do is it's not mathematically correct because I don't want to use dotted lines representing asymptote. But what I like to do is I now like to take my new starting point, which is at pi halves, right? So I'm going to say, all right, well, instead of at 0, 0, right, that's the starting point of the initial period, this point is going to be over here. Oh, actually, that was my next point to go there. And then I need to understand, well, what is my new x scale? My new x scale is going to be going over pi fourths. not by pi halves. So if this is at pi halves, right, what is going to be pi halves plus pi fourths? Now, sometimes students might, oh crap, fractions, I don't know how to do fractions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, remember, you can always rewrite pi halves in terms of fourths, right? That would be 2 pi over 4. Wouldn't you guys agree with me that 2 pi over 4 is the same thing as pi halves? Right, yeah, so it's a lot easier now to do 2 pi over 4 plus pi over 4, which is going to be a 3 pi over 4, which is going to be right there. And then 3 pi over 4 plus pi over 4 is going to be a 4 pi over 4, which is the same thing as pi. And then 4 pi over 4 plus another pi over 4 is going to be a 5 pi over 4. And again, you can see now I have my points. Now, I didn't change anything with this amplitude or shifting it up or down. So you can now see my graph is going to continue these characteristics just like that. Okay. So now I can simply go ahead and graph. Oops. And I got one more point. I forgot the thing. And then pi over 4 plus another pi over 4 is 6 pi over 4, which is the same thing as 3 halves. So that point's going to go from there and then up there. And now you can see I was able to condense it. So if you can understand how to identify the period, the x scale, and your starting point, you can simply just count to be able to identify what these current points are going to be. So that'd be 4 pi over 4. Let's say that's going to be a 5 pi over 4. And this would be a 6 pi over 4, which we already remember was 3 pi halves, right? If you simplify and reduce it. So let's get to the third tip. And the third tip that really gets students confused, and this is what I was talking about, it's not mathematically correct, or I don't want to get confused with asymptotes, is what about when we have a horizontal shift? So let's take this exact same graph and let's put a 2 here. And then let's do a sine of this 2x, what would I do? Plus 4 or minus pi, 2x minus pi. And then let's add 1. And now it's like, well, crap, like this is a lot of transformations. So what do I like to do here? Well, in the exact same thing, and again, to kind of reiterate going back to this, like you can continue using your x scales to add and subtract from this initial period to continue your graph going a little bit, to the left or to the right as needed for your teacher. A lot of times when we were graphing, we'd say do 2 periods. So you can just continue that x scale and continue the pattern as need be. But what about when we have a change in our amplitude and a vertical shift? What do we do here? So what I like to do in this case is, I don't want to use red, I want to use blue. What I like to do is I like to change my x-axis. All right, so here's still my initial period. I'm going to graph this kind of the initial graph here. Actually, I need to make this a little bit bigger in this case. But I think it's important to understand that I now have some changes in my amplitude, right? My amplitude is the absolute value of b, which is 2 in this case. And so what that means is now that's going to be the half distance between my max and my min, right? So instead of the half distance between my max and my min up here, which is 1, because it goes up to 1, down to -1, right? But the half distance of that amplitude, which is the half distance between those 2 points, is what we call the amplitude, is 1. Now that amplitude is 2. And so what you can think about now, this graph is going to go up to 2 and down to 2, right? So if here is my 1 and here is my -1, this amplitude is now shifting this graph up to 2 or down to -2. Now, again, this is before I apply this transformation of the +1. But whenever I see a +1, that is a vertical shift up or down. What I simply do is I create a new x-axis, and I'm going to use a dotted line. It's not representing an asymptote. And so mathematically speaking, that can be misunderstood. So a lot of times when I was telling my students to do it, I say like use this dashed line as representing your new x-intercept. But what I want you to represent is like erase that at the end. Don't leave that on there because we don't want to assume that like that's an asymptote of this graph. So all I'll simply do though, whatever my horizontal shift is, I am now going to shift that up, create this now kind of dashed line. And then I always like to draw my new kind of amplitude on over here. Now, unfortunately for this graph though, if you remember, it's now being shifted up 1. So even though the graph now goes up to 2 down to -2, it's being shifted up 1. So I need to even go up to 3 on this part. It's going to go all the way up to there, right? Now, what's important about this though, if it goes up 2 from here, it's going to go down 2, right? Because my half distance is 2. So originally this graph would look like this. So when it has an amplitude of 2, It's going to go up to 2, down to -2, right? It would look something like that. But now what's happening is when I shift this graph up 1 unit, I want you to see like that is going to be, that's how that is going to work and look and understand here, right? So now it's going up to 3 and down to -1. And I know my scaling is off, so apologies for that, but make sure you guys can see how that's working out. And then the last thing is we already have our x scale, right? We did that in the last example. So what's important though is if I don't know what my x and y intercepts are. That would be something I would have to go ahead and use a table of values to be able to identify them. But one thing I do know is that my x scale, or at least this starting point here, is at a pi halves. So the graph looks something like that. And then it's going to go up to 2 at a 3 pi over 4. And it's going to go down at meeting this point at a, what was that? A 4 pi over 4, or at pi. And then it's going to have a minimum point down here at a 5 pi over 4. And then it's going to come back over to this point at 6 pi over 4, which is also 3 pi halves. So if I was going to graph this on this new scale, this graph would look something like that. So whenever I'm trying to answer some questions here about what does the sine graph look like, what does this graph match this equation and stuff like that, I can utilize or change my x-intercept whenever I have that horizontal shift, and then make sure you apply the amplitude on your new y-axis, so therefore you can better visualize this. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this was just one example. And I told you at the beginning of this video, graphing sine and cosine or trigonometric functions can be difficult. So if you want to see me going over more examples of how to graph sine and cosine, then I'll have that video for you down below in the description. Or if you just want more videos on tips or trigonometric functions, then check out the next video I have for you here.